Good morning and Assalamu alaikum, my dears. Hope you all are keeping well. So, welcome to yet another session of literary criticism and theories. So, what did we do in the last class? In the last class, I gave you an introduction about the most challenging of literary theories that you'll be learning this semester, that is deconstruction. I hope you remember the beautiful allegory I gave you, what you have to remember when you will be learning deconstruction throughout. The allegory of the river, how you can never dive into the same river twice. So when time changes and you have new experiences, your outlook changes, and how you can never understand a text in the same way over and over again. Now, what else did we learn in the last class? I gave you a basic introduction about deconstruction. It was rather an extension or a branch of post-structuralism. It came as a reaction against structuralism, and it came in the year around 1960s and the 70s. And then we also saw who was the father of deconstruction. That was Jacques Derrida, the French philosopher, and how he had, introduced the concept of deconstruction in his 1967 book of Grammatology, which I hope you remember. It was translated by Gayatri Spivak. And then I told you to differentiate structuralism and post-structuralism in the sense that post-structuralism or deconstruction is basically a philosophy, whereas structuralism is connected to linguistics alone. What does structuralism tell you? It told you that meaning was absolute, that there is a structure followed by language. Whereas post-structuralism is a movement that negated all this, that meaning is not absolute, there is no structure. And I gave you the example of how you understand a building. To understand a building, you have to deconstruct it. You have to completely destroy it to understand the hidden meaning. So the post-structuralists or the deconstructionists, they always look for meaning that is not present. So meaning is never fully present in language. According to them, it is deferred endlessly. Meaning is floating. I told you that meaning is not definite. Text is elusive or slippery. And I told you the concept of how the author is dead. The author is not significant when you study a text. And another important thing I had told you was that post-structuralism or deconstruction, it basically destroyed the concept of binary oppositions. And the other great comparison that I had told you was post-structuralism, how when you use the word with a hyphen and without a hyphen. I hope you remember that when you use the hyphenated post-structuralism, that is, it refers to a particular time period. Post, that is after, comma, a hyphen, structuralism. So it refers to a particular time period which came as a reaction or a response to structuralism. Now, post-structuralism, when you use the term without a hyphen, you are referring to the features and the traits of post-structuralism. It does not particularly be limited to a particular time period. Okay, so these were the concepts that we dealt with in the last class. So today we'll be moving on. So welcome to Deconstruction Part 2. Okay, so I would like to begin today's session by introducing a new term or a very important term in deconstruction, and that is decentering. What do we understand from the term decentering? Center and decenter. So center means there is a center, and decentering meaning removing the center. Clear? So Derrida had actually developed this way of thinking through deconstruction, and that way of thinking is called decentering. He basically tells us that every system has a structure. There is a definite structure to every system. For a structure to exist, there should be a specific center. You cannot have a structure without a center, so the center will be controlling the entire structure. For example, you take the structure of religion. So religion is an important structure which has a center. That is, faith or God would be the specific center which controls the religion. Clear? Another example, suppose marriage. Marriage is a structure. You have that definite structure in a marriage. Every system has a structure. Whatever system you take, it will have a structure. So for a family system, or for a marriage has for marriage to exist, for marriage to establish itself, it should have a definite structure, and it will have a center. The center would be there, what can we say, love or respect for each other. It would be what controls the entire structure. Once there is no love, there is no respect for each other, you lose that love and trust in each other, then the structure collapses. Marriage collapses. So that is what I mean by having a structure and having a center. So the center will be what controls the structure. Only this much you have to understand. This is not limited to linguistics. It is a philosophy. Now, what is a center? The definition of a center would be, a center can be recognized as a guiding concept or something that explains the nature of that structure. So the center will determine what kind of a structure it has. So it depends completely on the center, what kind of a structure it is, for how strong a structure is. So the stronger the center, the stronger the structure will be. Now moving on to the next point, it says center is simultaneously within the structure and outside of it. Now what do you mean by within the structure and outside of it? When you speak of center controlling a structure, you cannot say that the center the structure is fully controlled by the center. So the center cannot be inside the structure. It has to be outside to be the controlling force. So the center should be fully aware of what happens within and outside the structure. So the center's presence, or where the center is, cannot be pinpointed. It can be both outside and both inside. Center is the actual center, although not belonging to the totality. This totality or this structure is being controlled by the center. Then if the center itself is inside the structure, then the center will be controlled by the center. I hope you understand. You draw a circle and you draw a center there. Okay. Now if the center is supposed to be controlling everything inside that circle, then that center is also being controlled by the center. I hope you get my point. Okay. So it has to be both outside and both inside. It should exist simultaneously. So that is why Derrida is saying the center is not actually the center. So Derrida is basing this concept on the fact that we are always looking for a structure and a center. Human beings cannot exist without a structure. They cannot exist without a center. So we are throughout always aware of ourselves being within a structure, being inside a center. But actually Derrida is saying the center is not actually the center. It is not what controls the structure. Because basically There is no structure. Now, this is the basic logic of Derrida's concept of post-structuralism. For example, let's come back to our example of marriage. I told you a marriage is a structure. The system exists in a structure of marriage, and it has a center, that is their love and trust, or whatever you specify as the center that binds them. That is the guiding concept. Let's look at the definition of a center. It can be recognized as a guiding concept or something that explains the nature of that structure. So this marriage is relevant, or this marriage exists because they have that love within them. Do you think in every marriage there is this mutual respect and mutual trust and love? Suppose the husband is cheating on the wife. That trust is not there. That love is not there, right? But still the marriage is existing. So is that really the center? So the center is not actually the center there then, right? Then everything is, deconstructed here. The center is not the center then. Then that means the structure is not there. That means that marriage is nullified. Let us take an example of a government that exists. India is a very big democracy, we know. Now, India as a democracy, it exists, and the government is also there. The government is the guiding force. The government is the center. So, democracy is a structure. India has adopted the structure of democracy, and we have a center, that is the government, the constitution, or whatever we say is the center. But can we say that the government is really standing for the structure? Is it really for the democracy? Are they really trying to uphold democracy? Not everyone. Basically, when you think of a government within a democracy, it is actually just a majority's selection, right? The ruling party who becomes the government. The government is the ruling party, right? So the ruling party, when it becomes a part of the government, when it becomes the government, it is actually just the, the choice of a majority. If, people have voted and only 60% has voted for the government, so-called ruling party, then the other 40% are still not, they have not selected that as the center. So for them, it is not their center. They have not opted it as their center. And also we have another issue there, the polling. How many people have not voted? So for them, who is the center? So this is the basic concept which he is trying to say, that the center is actually not the center. This happens in every structure. You break down every structure and you understand that actually there is no structure, there is no center. So Derrida, what Derrida does is that, from what I've written in my last point, Derrida views the world as seemingly broken up into pieces where object and ideas are represented from factors that surround it. People always opt for what is easier. So we look for what is, in our immediate surrounding. So we don't bother about what is the center, what is the structure. So everything is actually broken up. So there is no one totality. There is no one structure. That is what Derrida is saying. Everything is fragmented. That is what deconstructionists believe. Now moving on to our next concept, deconstruction of sign. Now to deconstruct the sign, let us simply understand what you mean by sign. Structuralism, that is the legacy of the linguist Ferdinand de Saussure. It maintained that signifier, that is a form of a sign, it refers to a signified. You have learned the example, right? Signifier, you have cat, the word cat, and the signified, the actual cat. That, you tell the word signifier or you read the word cat, and that is the signifier, and you have the signified, that is the cat. Now, deconstruction actually challenges the idea of a structure. For them, there is no structure or no center, hence no univocal meaning. So you cannot bind this signifier and signified together. Cat, C-A-T, or the sound or the word cat cannot be always linked to this cat, the animal cat. Can it always be linked to this cat? Katrina Kaif, the popular Bollywood actress, is called Cat. That also comes from the signifier cat, right? So I'll be explaining in more detail. So the notion of a direct relationship between signifier and signified is no longer tenable, is no longer, what can we say, tenable means is no longer valid. Okay, there is no direct relationship. You cannot say cat, cat is equal to Poocha, Billy. No, you cannot say that. It can have different signifieds. So it cannot have a direct relationship. There is no one-on-one relationship. Instead, according to Derrida, what we have is infinite shifts in meaning relayed from one signifier to another. That is a shift in meaning. There is always shift in meaning. You know, when suppose I tell the word cat, you have an image of a cat in your mind. Others might have a different image of a cat. Now, when I had this image of a cat, it becomes, instead of the signified, it becomes a signifier for me. And I am reminded of Chiru, a cat I had in my ancestral home, in my mother's ancestral home. We had this cat. She was called Chiru, a very beloved cat to us all. So, cat, the word, invoked in my mind the signified or the concept of a cat, and then I'm then reminded of Chiru, and then from there I might again, Chiru then becomes a signifier, and then I'm reminded of my ancestral home maybe. So there is infinite shifting of meaning. Okay, just understand that concept. There is an infinite shift in meaning relate from one signifier to another. And the signifier, the last point, the signifier does not refer to a definite signified. It does not always have only one meaning, but predicts another signifier instead. It can be a signifier. So the initial signified becomes a signifier, and you have another signified. Okay, I hope the next slide will help you relate more better. In the next slide, I hope the image is clear. From the word or from the letters, whatever the signifier you choose, signifier you have Lion, or someone might say the word lion. Not everyone, for them this hierarchy it might follow. It might be different. So one might have an image of a lion, and then they might be reminded of this lion, the second lion, the animated lion. So the animated lion is a part of a movie, right? So then you are reminded of Disney's The Lion King movie. And then we might be reminded of this song sequence in The Lion King. A very comic song sequence is there, in which they have this dancing. Simba is very lively and very, having dancing, and all these other animals, his friends are there. So actually the signifier lion, the initial first signifier lion, had actually was maybe told by the person who told that signifier to invoke a very ferocious image in your mind. But the ultimate result that ended might be a comic, reminder of the song sequence from the film Lion King. So just see how the signifier shifts. So the first line is the first signified, which becomes a signifier, and then you get the other signified, which then becomes the next signifier. So this instant, what can we say, this shift in meaning or this change from one signifier to another is very important here. Okay, I think we can wind this class here because I'm already reached the time limit. So it might be a bit boring also because deconstruction is not easily what can we say, absorbable. You cannot easily understand the concepts. So we might have to take it a bit slow. Since this is deconstruction, I am happily willing to give you lots of time because I too need time, because I am also at times very confused. So you don't need to feel anything. So we'll take it little by little. I also wanted to give you an introduction about Derrida, at least a small bio about Derrida and his works. But I think it will have to wait. So anyway, we'll be dealing with it in the next class. I want you to go through thoroughly with this section, and if possible I'll be sharing the slides, and also the I'll try to give you some notes also from deconstruction so you can read on your own. Okay, so try to read as much as possible on the topics that are selected for our classes, so that you will be able to understand a little by little, at least more deeply. Okay, so thank you girls for your time and patience, and keep smiling. Good morning and assalamu alaikum, my dear.